Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special audio commentary for Comic Book Issues, the review of One Moment in Time, the second in the Joe Quesada trilogy. He's promised a third one, but hopefully that'll never happen. I'm joined, of course, by a very special guest star, Mr. Linkara. Hello, Linkara.
Hello!
And this is, to date, my most popular show. It's done about 3 times more views than any other episode of Comic Book Issues. And I attribute that to 3 things. Right time, right guest star, right story.
I don't know about right guest star, but...
Well, I think a lot of people wanted to hear what you had to say about the whole one more day, one moment in time thing.
I was actually rather reluctant to do this, if I recall correctly, mostly because I at the time, I was just so adamant against not doing one more day or one moment in time, and I think that's why you're doing all the audio for it, because I was just like, I really don't want to talk about this.
Right. Well, this film was filmed in Gems Comics, Gem Comics, I would say Gems, I don't know why. GEM Comics in Elmhurst, Illinois, owned by my friend Gloria. I've been going here since I was a little kid. She was kind enough to let us film here. There's my friend Dave. And you'll notice the comic switches sides.
I also recall that we got a lot of flack for this scene right here.
Yeah, several people were upset because they didn't see you as a violent person, and this whole that we murdered Dave kind of upset them. But it was just really more a reaction to the comic book.
Yeah.
And I've been abusing Dave for years, so it's okay. Dave, of course, played Cat in Suburban Nights and has done several things for me on my show.
And we filmed this during the charity drive, if I recall correctly.
The third one, I believe. Now, the story is that you weren't there for the second one, and I was all kind of psyched because I live in Illinois, so I'm a cheap guest star. I just drive over there and do these for them, Rob and Doug. And you weren't there, and I was a little disappointed on that. I got to work with Spoonie, Joe, Bennett, and all those guys. But then the third one came on. They invited me back, and I asked, well, is Linkara going to be there? And said, yes, he is. So I immediately got on the Gmail and wrote you and said, hey, do you want to do something? And you were kind enough to say yes, and because we're the 2 Western comic book guys on the site.
Yep.
And you said, though, because you had so many crossovers to do during this thing, that you didn't want to write it. So I had to write this, and it needed to be done in a short amount of time. So the only thing I really had my feelings crystallized on, and that was fairly recent, was One Moment in Time. So that's why I picked that story, because I knew I could just bang it out and have I already had something to say about it.
And of course, I was still, like I said, I was still reeling about this. I mean, it took me a while to finally decide to do one more day for my 200th episode, and I was still pissed off about this story as well.
Yes. Because this story somehow makes One More Day worse, and I'm not sure how you do that.
I know. I think the only way they could possibly make it worse now is if, Spider-Man deliberately, killed children during it or something, or murdered puppies to maintain the illusion or something like that.
And Quesada said there's still one more part about this story he wants to tell. The only thing I can think of is, maybe how Peter loses the organic web shooters, but, I mean... So
no one was really asking.
Yeah, potentially there is still a third story that he's going to tell. And it's oh, God, enough, Joe, enough. You've heard us enough.
I will say this, the artwork on this story is still really good.
Yes, Paulo Rivera, I believe, who then became the regular artist on Mark Waid's Daredevil. And in the end, I gave it a half star, and I only gave it that for the art.
Yeah.
He does a really good job here. Now then, we filmed the Gems Comics stuff right before the telethon, and then we filmed all the in-studio stuff the next day afterwards, so if we're a little frazzled, it's because we've been up for 12, 18 hours, I don't know.
Yeah, we were jumping around everywhere. The others, I think, were all back at the hotel watching Cage with Spoonie, Brad, and I can't remember who else was there. Bennett, maybe?
Joe, I think.
So they were having a grand old time, and then I got to go out and watch One Moment in Time with you, and do One Moment in Time stuff with you.
Yeah. But it's always fun to just get in front of a camera and bitch. I mean, that's our life's blood.
Yeah, and this story. A lot of people complain about the Spider-Man marriage because of the way it came about. And you know what? Maybe you're right on that account, but it doesn't change the fact that their relationship was still so good and was still that important.
That's right. I never had a problem with the marriage because that's when I got into Amazing Spider-Man was during the J.M. DeMatteis, Mark Bagley era. So he was married when I got into Amazing Spider-Man, and that's what made sense for me. I do apologize for some of these pan and scans on the still images. I just look at them now and I know they're going way too fast. But this was still my first year of doing reviews, so I look at this early stuff and I'm like, no, sometimes. And also the live action stuff was fact number 1, fact number 2. I wanted to really go through the points of what was and wasn't answered by One Moment in Time, the question that One More Day raised. So whenever we did a live segment, this is the question that One More Day left us, and this is how Omid answered it.
And answered it badly.
Yes. Really, I think One More Day set a bad precedent in a lot of ways because it was really the editorial and ownership of the companies telling the fans what they wanted instead of vice versa. And that's gone on right through to the DCNU and a lot of the mainstream decisions today that just are pissing fans off, but they're just not listening to us. And yeah, these comics sell, but it doesn't really help the reputation of the company any to sell a bad comic.
Yeah, and there's only so much you can push the fans before they finally break.
Yeah, but look at that great acting by Linkara there. Says totally original, folks!
What's funny about the... oh yeah, you can't heal a bullet wound. Can't heal a bullet wound, but fixes her up just fine.
Yeah.
God damn it! You contradict your own stupid story.
And then there was a lot of outcry on this on a certain comic book website's forums. Where
comic book resources? I know they hate me.
All right. I was trying to keep them anonymous, but
I don't care. They hate me for reasons I don't quite understand and don't really much care about anyway.
But anyway, Stephen Wacker was getting in on this, and he refused to watch my review because my name was the last Angry Geek, so it was obviously going to be a negative review. And I'm like, it's not negative because my name's Angry. It's negative because the comic sucks. But he went on he was trying to defend all these things, like, yeah, we talked to real doctors and stuff, and like, well, yeah, but that was for the scene right where she's dying. You can't use that as an excuse that it's a good story when when that's the stuff you're throwing out the window for your made-up ending. I mean,
yeah.
There were just so many problems with One More Day. There's so many problems with Omit, and it's like,
you can be medically accurate as you want. It doesn't change that it was a bad story.
Right. I mean, the best way I can put it is you're the last man on the human centipede. You're going to have to eat a lot of shit to get through this. Behind there, that is a calendar by J. Scott Campbell that I probably bought at a convention. Mm-hmm. This is before the magic screen, which I've recently retired, where I would just put a frame up behind me and inlay images for whatever comic I was reviewing or whatever image was appropriate to the comic I was reviewing. But in the very early episodes, I had a different artistic print that I got at a convention or calendar or whatever, some sort of comic book art that I would put up there. It would be like asking me to stop loving you, which I've done many times. MJ really, yeah. MJ really got the fuzzy end of the lollipop in Omid. It really retroactively tried to take all the problems people had with One More Day and shove it onto her. Oh, it's her fault that the marriage ended, not Peter's. Peter's still golden,
No, No.
At the end of the day, he's still the superhero who made a deal with the devil, which Spider-Man would never do.
Yes.
And that was my biggest problem with it. It's basically Peter Parker giving up, and that's the one thing Peter Parker doesn't do.
And it really does paint a picture when during the Clone Saga they did a better story about Aunt May dying.
Now, this was the only part of the script that you insisted on, was talking about how the editors were mentioning time travel, and they were saying that time travel didn't work a certain way. I sent you the script, and you came back and said, the previous Marvel editors have said time travel doesn't work this way, and you really wanted to get that in there, so that was like, the one major edition of the script I put in at your request.
Yeah, because this was a big deal with the Clone Saga. I mean, they had this idea, that horrible image of that horrible artwork of them laughing. Hey, we should get back together again. Ha 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 ha!
Hilarious.
But God, I hate that text too. But I mean, you could reinterpret that in so many stupid ways.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, that was a thing. One of the ideas for ending the Clone Saga was that Peter would go back in time and become Ben Reilly, thus legitimizing both of them.
Oh Lord!
And that's actually kind of a neat idea. And you know, I would have accepted that. But the problem, of course, being they clearly established how time travel works in the Marvel Universe, and they were big continuity hounds about that.
Ultron War, that'll never happen. So, this was our first time working together. What were your impressions of my artistic process?
I thought you were a horrible human being. No,
oh, man, I didn't think you were that accurate with your intuition.
No. You do things fine. It's a bit different from mine. I don't know what the writing process is for you, but for me, of course, I sit down on the couch. I record everything straight through these days, and have been for like 3-4 years now. I used to record audio separately.
I do the live action, then I record then I stand in front of my camera, speak, and just pull the audio off of that.
Yeah, that's how I used to operate when I was first starting out. And of course, I have a difficult time memorizing longer periods of dialogue and lines.
Sure.
So that's why I have my laptop with the teleprompter, and of course you didn't have that, so...
Well, I use the Doug Walker method of taping my lines underneath the camera now.
Mm.
So people say, hey, you're reading their... Yeah, I am. And...
I think that did result in a lot of takes for us. We had to do that because I kept flubbing things.
And I was used to stopping the camera between takes, and you said, no, let it go. Oh, okay, sure.
I operate on the let it go continuously, mostly because of my editing software. Adobe Premiere for me hates having like 36 HD files. It's fine if they're like 4 long HD files. But lots of them, it goes nuts.
I still say you're missing out on a cash bonanza with the Joe Quesada "You Are a Hack" T-shirt.
I like to think. The more I think about it, the problem is the more I think about the definition of a hack. He's not really a hack. He's just an idiot.
Yeah, well, fair enough. So this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. You've done several cameos for me. I've actually did, I think, my first on-screen cameo for you when I played Cloak Number 1.
Which confused so many viewers.
That was in part how I filmed it, though. But, it's, I'm always happy to work with you, and hopefully we'll get the chance to do again soon. Thank you for joining me on this commentary. I've always said I wasn't going to do commentaries on my episodes unless I, had something to say, and obviously this is my most popular episode, and I think there's still a lot to say about One More Day and One Moment in Time, and just the bad influence it has on modern day comics.
My fans out there, watch this man's work. He is funny and entertaining, and he talks more about good comics than I do.
It's usually based on what I'm reading, and I don't usually read too many terrible ones. But they sneak in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for joining me, Linkara, and I hope you found this commentary track informative, my friends. I'm the Last Angry Geek, and I'll see you next time on Comic Book Issues.